Okay, so you know we're talking about broken people tonight, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But I didn't want it to sound like I didn't want it to sound like I wanted it to sound more spiritual than psychiatric. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I have a PowerPoint, and when we get to each one, then I'll just add to it. But if you have a question, stop me. I probably can't answer it, but I'll make something up. Okay, y'all ready? Oh, there's
Yeah.
Maggie.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so you want to let me have control of the. I can't hear you. You're muted.
You should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it says you can share your screen.
All right.
Oh.
All right. Can everybody see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Okay, so when we say that the church is a place for broken people, we assume everybody is broken in some way, right? People have had rough childhoods, or they've had bad marriages, or they've had a hard time at work or at school. Everybody's got some kind of pain. We don't hurt in the same way. Some people have suffered traumas, and those are hard to understand and deal with, but there's not one person ever who is not broken in some way. Y'all agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Does anybody not agree with it? You want to tell me? Okay. And these are just the different ways, you know, the pain of life can seem too much to bear. A husband leaves, a child dies, rape, assault, incest, drug abuse, disasters. All of these things hurt us to our core. And at times, all we can do is sit and cry and try to survive. Right, Jan?
Yes.
It may feel like no one has felt hurt exactly like this, which is true. Two people could both have a spouse who died, and each of them feel that pain in different ways because their relationships were different. Everybody is unique. And if you are unique, then the pain that you feel is also unique.
I wonder what I'm showing on here.
What? Was that for me? Okay.
That was from Maggie.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what part I'm on. I don't know if I'm showing you Mike eating or if it's on me.
I don't know. I can't see you.
I can't see anybody else.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
So how do we survive? How do we get through the days and nights when our hurts are fresh and new and tender? And the answer is that we reach out. We reach out to all those people around us. If I'm hurting, if something horrible has happened, there's at least 3 people that I immediately reach out to. If I need prayer, there's at least 3 people that I immediately reach out to. And everybody, I hope, has somebody they can reach out to. But if not, I mean, what is the church for? It's why we try to tell people, if you're going through something, let us know. Just knowing that people are praying for you, just knowing that somebody cares that you're hurting, just knowing that you're not alone is probably one of the most helpful things we can do for people that are in pain. Anybody have anything to add to that? I think this one's really important because the first line says people are not meant to live in isolation. Since the beginning of time, humans have lived in clans, groups, and families. Close relationships were crucial to survival. And that's true even today. And I don't mean families or tribes that, oh, we all think the same way and we all like the same things and we all hate the same people. when I'm talking about those groups or those families or those clans, I'm talking about people that we interact with, people we can depend on, people that have different skills. And so if I got marooned on a desert island, I would want a certain group of people with me because we all have different skills, right? If we all had the same skills, then we would die. If we all thought the same way, we would die. Because some of our thoughts are pretty stupid. So just think if it was you that had the stupid thought and everybody in your group had the same stupid thought, you'd die. So we need those relationships and those groups that are making us think, that wrap us up when we're hurting, that help us out when we lose a job or when we can't find what we're looking for. When people sit alone with their pain, it morphs and magnifies. So people build walls around themselves to keep everyone out so they won't be hurt again. I'm not sure. My guess is that everybody knows somebody that when they're in pain, they isolate. They stay away from church, they stay away from their family, they stay away from their friends. And that isolation makes them think that they're the only ones that have ever been through that, or they're the only ones that are in this pain and don't know what to do with it. So the isolation makes everything bigger. If you're a Harry Potter fan, one time he was out with the Thestrals, which are these really ugly looking animals, and the only people that can see them are the people who have witnessed death. So he's out there, and Luna Lovegood comes up and she's talking to him, and he's talking about being alone, I guess. And she tells him, you know what? I'm sure that you know who, which is the really bad guy in Harry Potter, would like you to think that, because if you think you're alone, you're not very powerful. And that's true even in our pain. If we have people that are surrounding us, if we have people that are reaching out to us or people we can reach out to, then we're able to think more clearly. We're able to breathe. We're able to figure things out because we know we have those people with us. The Harry Potter one was just for your own.
I appreciated it.
The walls that we build are like a petri dish for suffering, with no one to help shape their reality and no one to help them heal or to see their pain or show them that they're loved anyway. Hurt grows and healing remains elusive. Walls don't so much prevent pain from coming in as keep the pain from ever leaving. Any wall is built to keep something out, right? Or to keep something in. When we have these divisions in our neighborhoods where we wall ourselves off, every once in a while that works against us because ambulances or fire trucks or whatever also can't get in sometimes. It's the same way with pain. If we put that wall up where we're not talking to anybody else, we're not allowing anybody else to help us, then we're just helping that pain grow and we're feeling more alone and more isolated. Anybody have anything on this one?
I know that's how I grieve, mourn when I'm in pain. My first response is to, tell Claire, leave me alone, just leave me alone. And she is very nurturing, and her first response is to, be as close as possible. And
You're describing my wife and I right now, but oppositely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of families that are like that. And I used to be like that, not so much now, but still a little bit. I think sometimes it's the idea that, well, this is mine and I can deal with it and I just need to get over it because nobody else really wants to hear it. But
Yeah.
when we isolate like that, we just make it grow. We don't help it go away. We make it grow.
But Micki, right now, we can't help but be isolated to a huge degree.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, that is just part of where we are living. I mean, if we are to continue to love our neighbor, look out for our neighbor, and do the things that help keep our neighbor safe, we're gonna be isolated. And I hear what you're saying, but right now, you know, I don't know how to become unisolated.
Well, I will tell you that I have young people who get in touch with me more often than I have adults get in touch with me, who will tell me, you know what, right now I'm feeling really lonely and I want to see my friends and I'm just really sad about that. And they've been much more open about that during this time than the adults. So what I try to tell them to do is, okay, let's think of the people that you can be on Zoom with, or let's think of the people that you can play cards with when you're on Zoom. Or, you know, we have to do things differently right now, but I think not reaching out only increases our sadness and our grief, which grief is, I think, what most people are having right now, grief and loneliness.
I think regardless of what the end result is, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said just reaching out to someone, whatever that looks like. If that's a phone call, right? If that's on Zoom, if that's, you know, whatever. That's whatever that leads to. Just it's that reaching out to someone. Absolutely, yeah.
That's why what you do, Rhonda, with the phone tree is so important. Because some of our people, if they're not at church, they're alone. And so those phone calls are the difference in being totally isolated and having someone be interested enough to say, how are you? Are you okay? I think that phone tree is probably the most important thing Trinity has done for mental health since this started. And it's why we try to have so many, like the Wednesday evening prayer and the Bible study on Fridays and the children's chapel on Sundays, and then having at least one service in the parking lot, is so people don't feel alone, because it's hard. Anybody else? In one of his songs, Leonard Cohen writes, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Think about that. The cracks, the pain, the hurt are inevitable, but it is through them that growth happens, that light comes in. Pain is a part of being alive. Just like grief is a part of loving people. You know, when we have things that happen in our life, when our children are in pain, when we can't figure out what to do when something happens that we weren't expecting, it breaks us. It breaks our hearts. It breaks our spirit sometimes. And it takes this village and it takes these cracks that lets the light in to fill us up again and allow us to be okay. So the question here is, no.
Micki, we had a question in the chat to everyone, but I think probably specifically to you. So what do we do for those in our lives who won't reach out when they hurt, but who we want very much to help?
You know what? You can't make other people reach out. What we do in the church is we call people. If we haven't seen them in a while, we call them, or we go by their house, or we try to touch base with them. Are you okay? Did something happen? Are you, what's going on? And we try to do the same thing in our families. You know what? I'm really concerned about you. I think you need to go talk to somebody. If you don't want to talk to me, then, here's a list of people that you could call and make an appointment with. But it's up to that person. If it's an adult, it's up to that person to decide that they have to do something. And I will tell you that no one comes to me for counseling until they're uncomfortable with their life. If they're not uncomfortable, they're not coming. And it doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable or not. They have to be uncomfortable. They have to want to change something that's going on in their life before they ask for help or reach out. So in this cracks, are we focusing on the cracks, or can we see the light that they provide? And the light helps us see. I wish I could see the rest of that. Anyway, the whole point of this is that we all have those cracks. So when I do grief work with little kids, I have this thing that we do where I have a big heart and we cut it apart and then we put it back together as a puzzle. But even when it's back together whole, you can still see where it was cut. You still see those cracks. Or you take a little pot and you break it and you glue it back together. You can still use the pot. The pot is whole again, but you still see the cracks, right? We all have those cracks in our heart and in our soul, either because of pain that we've been through, or because of grief we've been through, or because life happened to us that we weren't expecting. But it doesn't mean that we can't be whole again. It just means that those cracks will always be there. We won't forget that pain. We just get through it. That makes sense? Anybody want to say anything about that? You're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't agree.
You gotta look for the cracks sometimes.
Oh, I never have to look for those cracks, Jan. I always know they're there. When we make the decision to open ourselves up to others, when we are hurting, or reach out when we encounter someone else in pain, we begin the healing process. You cannot start healing until you open up. It just doesn't happen. If you keep all that pain in, it's just going to come up again in another way until you open up and until you reach out. People that decide, okay, this person who I love very much died, but I'm just going to keep that to me and I'm just going to get through it and I'm going to go back to work. They died, we had the funeral, I went back to work, everything's fine. That's the everything's fine person. We have a lot of those in our church and in our homes, right? If you don't deal with the pain of that grief, it will come up again and again and again in different ways until you deal with it. I don't know why. I didn't put y'all together. God did that, so you can ask him. I don't know why it works that way, but it does. Others help us make sense of our suffering. They support us and they remind us that broken as we are, we're still loved. And it's through connecting with people, sharing our stories, that we see ourselves as part of humanity. Sharing our stories. I must say that probably, I don't know, 25 times a day at least. If somebody cannot share their story, then they can't own their story. If they can't share their story, then that story stays buried deep down. And again, if it's something that's causing you pain, it will still come up again and again. Questions, comments?
My mom passed away in 2015, March 23rd, 2015. It was the Monday before Holy Week. And I had left a rehearsal with kids, to go run home and make dinner for Mom. And then I was going to go back and finish my evening up at the church. And Mom and I were very close. And she lived with me we lived together for the last 5 years of her life. And it was a wonderful time. But I really didn't begin to grieve her until the summer of 2017. Yeah, 2017. And even then, I kept it as I internalized as much as I could. Because I remember now the priest, my boss at that church, attended the service, and I remember him walking up and he was saying this in a joking way, but it was true. He said, "I want you to take as much time as you need, but not for the next 2 weeks." And I poured myself into work. It's a pretty big church, and we had multiple choirs and all kinds of stuff. And there was a lot going on. And I remember, in that summer of 2017, when I began to grieve a little bit, I would try to shove it down as much as I could. And then in 2019, my best friend committed suicide, and I just, every ounce of that grief for my mom came up with a vengeance, I think I'd say. And I felt like it was a dark time. And I thought really I had grieved over my mom. And I realized when Josh died that I actually had not.
Mhm. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Sure
You know,
does.
especially here in the United States. What, Jan?
I said it sure does.
Yeah, we've had many conversations about that, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
You know, here in the United States, especially when it's grief, but even something like losing a job. I mean, people will hide that from other people as long as they can because they're embarrassed. They're ashamed. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think there are lots of people that have lost jobs over time, but it's something that people are ashamed of, and so they won't tell anybody. And when they don't, when you try to hide those things, when you try to stuff those things down, when you don't let other people help you, then it's a sickness that comes through. You wind up with stomach aches, you wind up with headaches, you wind up doing things that you never thought you would do. Thank you for that, Garrett. So if you're hurting right now, know that you're not alone, because there's everybody in the entire world is hurting right now, actually. There are people who care and who will listen. And you know who they are usually. Maybe if you don't go to church, maybe there's not somebody that you know, or Facebook's a terrible place to get help, but it's a good place to reach out. And this is at the end. If you open up to one person who can't listen, try someone else, and then another until you find someone. I tell little kids that all the time. You find an adult and tell them what's going on. And if they don't listen, you go to another adult. And if they don't listen, you keep going until you find somebody that's going to listen to you. we don't tell adults that, right? If we reach out to somebody and they act like they don't want to listen or talk to us, then we just figure there's something wrong with us and we should just, I don't know, maybe not bother anybody else. You know, we're really good at not bothering. Oh no, it's fine. I don't want to bother you. You have so much other stuff. Oh, you've just been through this. I don't want to bother you with that. But guess what? People want to be bothered. They want to help. They want to listen. They want to see what they can do that might be useful or helpful. Isolation and loneliness are what pain feeds on. And that's what we talked about a while ago. The more you isolate yourself, the bigger the issue becomes and the more pain there is.
Oh,
Anybody have anything to say on that one?
Yeah, I struggle with that. I struggle with, it's okay to call somebody and reach out and ask for help from someone that you know is just in the same situation or worse that you're in. And you truly don't want to add to their burden. And so, yes, I struggle with that.
The thing is that if you reach out to someone who can understand what you're going through, it helps them as much as it helps you. When we're only focused on our own pain, it's much bigger than when we try to help somebody else with their pain. So for a few minutes, that listening takes us out of our whatever we're going through and allows us to help someone else. I don't know why it works that way, but it does.
Micki,
Yeah.
the one thing that was a blessing in the telephone tree and in connections was that a group of people reached out over periodically just to touch in. And the point I'm trying to make is that other than, someone that would go to a telephone hotline or one of those to someone anonymous, you got to build a relationship over time. And that, being on the telephone tree or being a live is that over a period of time, as you interact with them, you build a trusting relationship where the people would be comfortable, where otherwise you get back into, people think that they will be rejected, to a total, or they don't want someone in the church to know or whatever. So it's all this is fine, but that is a healthy thing we as a church do, and periodically just touch base and go through the spiel of how are you doing, all that, and do it on a periodic basis. You're building a relationship. You got to build. It's all trusting the other, because some people it's dangerous to go tell something to.
Yeah.
They're gossips. They will use it against you, and that could undermine the whole deal.
Yep.
Then,
Yeah, people have to earn the right to hear your story. That's for sure. But that's where you build relationships in the church. And even if you don't want to tell your whole story to somebody, just saying, yeah, I'm struggling today. The other person can say, you know what, so-and-so is a really good person to talk to. And that happens all the time. And sometimes when I meet with my clients, I don't find out some of the deep things that's really troubling them for 6 months to a year. There are things that I learn after I've been seeing somebody for a year that they've never brought up until that year. So there are things that people keep way down deep that bring them a lot of pain, and it takes a long time for them to talk about.
I know with regard to church, in 2004, I was struggling with something, and I thought, well, I'm gonna get out of ministry altogether, and I left the church I was at, and our worship team threw a going away party for me, and at that going away party, I learned that many people in that group were struggling with or had struggled with what I was struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I've been to these people's houses. We've had dinner, we've laughed, we've cried, for 7+ years. And I said, I never knew. I remember saying to a good friend of mine still, I said, if I really wish I would have felt like I could reach out and talk to someone, because I had no idea that there were so many others who had experienced because that was a period of a dark, deep, long period of feeling alone. But there's also this, I've always called it church face. We got to keep the church face on. And in church face land, everything is perfect, everything is great, and we just a smile.
Yeah.
And that had actually become almost impossible for me to carry on, which is why I said, I need to go. But I was so shocked when I found out all these friends.
Right? We have to have our smile on, and we have to have that perfect life. We only talk about our successes. We don't talk about our failures. I mean, I don't know how people can keep that up. And I don't think they can really. I think they do exactly what you just said. I think they leave and they go someplace else where they can be perfect for a little while. Then they leave and go someplace else. Anything else on this one? I hope you remember this last line here. Isolation and loneliness are what pain feeds on. Let your walls crack open and the light come in. Allow yourself to be heard, understood, and comforted. We're all broken, but we're also all healing. We're all always healing. If you listen to the Wednesday night service tonight, I messed up and didn't read the reading till the very end, but I did read the reading. And if you read the reading, what struck me was, because of what I was going to talk about tonight and that reading where there were so many people that came out to hear him that he had to get in the boat, and he talked in parables and all that. But you know what he was always doing? He was always healing. He was always healing. And it wasn't just physical healing. It was emotional healing. It was mental healing. He was always healing. And that's what he told the disciples to do as well. So I'm thinking that in the church, that has to be what we're about. If we're not a place where people can heal, and I'm not talking about, the big traumas that people need a doctor for or a therapist or whatever. I'm talking about those everyday things that all the time it pounds on our heart, one thing after another. We have a death, we have a car wreck, our kid goes off the rails, our kid dies, we have a miscarriage, we have a divorce. Those are things that over time just beat our heart up. And those are things that the church can always help with.
That's what the healing ministers do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of is just listening, basically. And it is the simple things. It's not big traumas most of the time. But they need to say it in a safe place.
Yeah, exactly. Although it's not even all, you know what? Sometimes when we have our breakfast Sundays and we're sitting in these big groups, you find out that people are going through these things and you're like, why didn't you let us know? You know, and it's always like, oh, I didn't want to bother anybody. But I think Jesus says, bother us. So this is my most favorite thing in the entire world. This is the Kenzugi. It's the Japanese art of putting broken pottery pieces back together with gold. Yeah. Built on the idea that in embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. This is our heart. Because when God is healing us, he's not healing us with super glue that might come unglued. He's putting us back together with gold. He's putting us back together with all these different people putting in all these different pieces of gold. And then God just kind of puts it all together. Using this as a metaphor for healing ourselves teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes in the process of repairing things that are broken, we actually create something more unique, beautiful, and resilient. Most of the resilient people I know, the strong people I know, are the people that have been through 1,001 things that I think would have killed me. But they just, like the little Energizer bunny, they just keep going. And this to me, when I think of a broken heart, when I think of illness, when I think of grief, this allows me to know that I will be stronger, I will be more resilient, and that God will put me back together. He uses other people, but he will put me back together. Anything else on that? Our cracks are what give us character and let us shine. The wound is the place where the light enters you. So when we're wounded, like let's say our child comes to us and says, knowing that we think it's a sin and it's wrongful, Mom, you know what? I'm gay. And maybe as mom, I say, you know what? No, you're not. We didn't raise you that way. You can repair yourself. I'm not going to believe this. Maybe after I go through that with my child, I see everybody else's child differently. I see when they have a DUI. I see the pain in their parents and the shame in the child, but I see them put themselves back together again. I see when a family has to deal with their child being gay, or when they have to deal with a child who didn't want a divorce, who's being divorced, alcoholism, drug abuse, any of those things, they can either tear us apart and make us just think life sucks big time, or they can allow us to rethink some of the things that we thought before and help us to figure out how to put ourselves back together. And it's usually with the help of other people. So I love what Rose Kennedy says, who also knew something about damaged people. She said, it's been said time heals all wounds, and I don't agree. The wounds remain. In time, the mind, protecting its sanity, covers them with scar tissue, and the pain lessens, but it's never gone. Just like this piece of pottery, these cracks are always going to be there. They're covered over with the scar tissue, with gold scar tissue. Never goes away, but the pain lessens and we're made whole even with the cracks. Oh, I wonder what I did with that one. Oh, rassle, frassle. Okay, hang on. Ha! Okay. Healing the broken is a labor of love that takes time, compassion, and involvement. Embracing brokenness is never convenient or easy. It takes time, it costs money, and it forces us out of our comfort zones. Help us to do the work you call us to do for the broken. I cannot tell you how much joy I get from having people trust me with their life. I cannot tell you the joy I get from sharing their pain, because I think it's what we're called to do in lots of different ways. And when people share their story with you, what they're saying is, I trust you with part of my life. I trust you with my story. And I think that's important. So that's all I got except for our prayer. Wrestle, frazzle. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to share something.
Okay.
When Glenn died, one of his sisters could not talk to me about him because it caused her so much pain, not realizing the pain she was causing me because I couldn't talk to her about it. And before he was sick and died, his brother had a terrible accident and their 10-year-old child was killed. And I remember being over at their house and hearing them talk about Joshua this and Joshua that. And I thought how hard that must have been to still be talking about him, until I realized how healing that is.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to talk, to say that person's name. And one of the most beautiful things that happened to me, and I've shared this before, I was ushering one Sunday after Glenn died, and Liza Walmsley, when she was coming in the church, she said, I just want you to know how much I miss your husband. His smiling eyes. He was so sweet. And I thought, it just brought me such joy that somebody could talk to me, that they remembered him. Mm-hmm. And certainly other people have, I don't mean that. But that initial not being able to share the loss of my husband with one of his sisters, because it caused her pain. And it caused me pain not being able to share it. Mm-hmm. So I think we're all blessed when there are people that, like you've been saying, that we can share the grief, the pain, whatever it is with. Anyway, that's all.
But you know what, y'all, that's even about joy. I mean, sometimes we don't want to share our joy with people because we don't want to make them feel bad for, not having that joy or something. And if you've ever had something wonderful happen and then you look around and you're like, well, who do I share this with? I got to share it with somebody. And that's a terrible position to be in, because it's like you're just bursting to tell somebody.
I have something I want to share, and it's not grief, it's just good. Tom lost his father's ring about probably maybe almost 2 months ago. And we gave up on it. And today I was cleaning out the freezer and I found the ring frozen in the back of the freezer.
Oh my gosh. How
But,
wonderful.
yeah, that was just so good. Like you said, you want to share it. It was so wow.
That should remind us to clean out our freezers, huh?
Yeah.
Tell them what
Oh, we got there.
anybody else?
Back to your reference about Rose Kennedy.
Mhm.
A lot of times when you lose someone or something bad happens and somebody is trying to, help you or say something nice to you, they say, well, you'll get over it.
Oh,
Oh,
And that's not really true.
I
You
hate
don't,
no.
if you're lucky, you will come to terms with it and you will deal with it. But you don't ever get over it. Like, losing a parent, you don't get over that, but eventually you come to terms with it. And then hopefully then you can move on.
Yeah.
So I think that references, where she says it is never gone, but the pain lessens.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that is. You come to terms with it and then you can move on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a reality. And that's what we do when we're working with grief. Even now, we never tell people they'll get over it because it's not true. And it's never been true. I think that,
Yeah.
We say things to people because we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever had somebody die, all the goofy things that people say to you, like, oh, God needed another flower in his garden. Well,
Yeah. Or
that
another
one
thing.
just about drives me nuts. Or God needed another angel or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're getting better at being able to be uncomfortable and not say anything.
Listen, love, love.
Yep.
Yes, I like what Carol said. I can relate to that because it's been 40 years since Rowan died, and you really don't get over it. I go and sit at his grave and just woohoo, sometimes. But people have said a lot of things to me, yeah, another angel, but one of the things that I really that was good for me is talking about him. And I know people, would walk around like they're walking on eggshells around me after he died. But one of the things that was really healing for me was just talking about him, talking about his death and his life. And I mean, he was only 8, but that was good for me.
Mhm.
You like to hear their name spoken out loud.
I could not talk about my mom without full-blown ugly crying, no matter where I was for the first 4+ years of. I couldn't even have photos of everything I had of hers. Photos and such was packed away until last year was the first time I was able to bring it out, because I would see a picture of her and just lose it. And that was, I hadn't grieved.
Yeah. And you know what? It's the same with a lot of not just death of people we love, but if somebody has been abused, if somebody has been in a bad car wreck, if when we never talk about those things, they never leave our mind. And there's a book by Bessel van der Kolk, I think that's how you say his last name. It's called the body never forgets. When you do not deal with your pain, your body will let you know, because your body will react to it. And it's not, I mean, I know it sounds like woo, but it's not. It is neuroscience. It is brain science. It It is the way we're put together. We're put together to be in groups and tell our stories and share our pain. We're not made to be alone. We're not made to get through things on our own. I know we're great Americans and pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, but you know what? There have been times in my life when I couldn't find my boots, much less bootstraps. And I needed those other people to help me. We have to allow others to help us carry the pain.
So that healing can begin.
Yes, always. That's exactly when healing begins. All right. If nobody has anything else, does anybody have anything else?
Well, I might have something.
Okay.
I just have always found that, I can just call you and freak out about something, and you call me in just one sentence. You go, well, just don't do it. Go on. I don't have to do it? Okay. I feel better. Anyway, I just want to let you know.
Thank you, Maggie. Maggie and I have been friends a long time. All right.
Thank you, Micki.
Let us
Yes,
pray.
thank you.
We remember those who are ill or in pain, who find it hard to get through each day. Those who are nearing the end of their days on earth. Those who have been parted by death from the ones they love. Those who have lost the ones they love, parted by misunderstanding and hate. Those who live alone and who are desperately lonely. Those who are abused and who live their lives in fear and shame. Those for whom there is no food and who are dying of hunger. Heavenly Father, be with these and all who are in distress. Give us strength to join you in your work and labor by your side until your kingdom comes on earth and all people see your glory. Amen.
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 Micki, thank you for sharing with us tonight the work of Christmas. That's what this is all about. We're in that work of Christmas. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love this stuff. You put God and the brain in the same thing, and I'm good to go.
Thank the Lord.
Thank you, Micki.
Does anyone have anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Micki.
Garrett, aka MC.
Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you again.
You too.
Thank you, everyone who shared.